Today I invite you for a walk around Vilnius, where every stone breathes history. And one of these stories is the legend of Twardowski's Tower. Sigismund Augustus grieved for a long time over Queen Barbara de Wilde. Early gray hair whitened his hair. His eyes dimmed and lost their former sparkle. But the most terrible ordeal befell the king when one day he tried to remember the face of his beloved, and could not. He remembered the rustle of her dress, the sound of her voice, her light step, but the face, the gaze that had so often lovingly and tenderly accompanied him, dissolved in the mist of time. And no matter how hard the king tried, he could no longer bring her back to his memory. The ruler was troubled and saddened. He complained to his court physician and ordered the astrologer to study the position of the stars. But the healer's fragrant herbs proved useless. The astrologer insisted every day that the stars were still misaligned, that they needed to wait until Venus moved to a new orbit, until the cold moon carried the seventh sphere, until... And the hours slipped away like sand. Some flowed like water. And the king felt that soon he would let the scepter slip from his hands, that soon his feet would no longer tread upon this earth, and most of all, he longed to see once more the face that once stirred his heart. The autumn equinox has already passed, and the nights have become longer. The wind had already torn off the last yellow leaves in the royal gardens, when suddenly a carriage drawn by 4 black horses appeared in Vilnius. Later, people claimed that the carriage did not enter through the city gates, but simply appeared suddenly on the main street. The coachman, who was lame in one leg, jumped down from the box, and he obligingly opened the carriage door. A tall man with piercing black eyes stepped out, wrapped in a long traveling cloak. He said something to the servant in incomprehensible words. The servant listened humbly and bowed his head, and, limping awkwardly, he disappeared behind the palace doors. The onlookers surrounding him tried to make out the stranger's face, almost hidden under a long hood, but the man's eyes shone so brightly that they involuntarily turned away. Already that same evening, in all the taverns of Vilnius, it was said that a great wizard and magician, Twardowski, had arrived from Prague. Some said he had been living for several hundred years, dying and resurrecting, thanks to his spells and, of course, the devil. Others counted his unimaginable riches. Still others claimed that the city would not escape trouble now. The next morning, at the gates of the house where the great mage was staying, a palace carriage with royal crest stopped. The palace awaited Sigismund Augustus Yatab to... The wizard proudly walked through the palace halls, but his tall, lean figure was not reflected in the huge mirrors. The nobles respectfully nodded, whispered, and kept their eyes on Twardowski, but the wizard followed the nimble page, paying them no attention. Sigismund Augustus sat in a soft chair upholstered in red velvet, supporting his weary head with his right hand. Upon seeing the mage, he perked up and nodded to the page. The wizard dropped to one knee and bowed low. "I have arrived, gracious sovereign, as you commanded." The king looked at the wizard for a long time and then asked, "Can you do what I ask of you?" "Yes," Twardowski replied without hesitation. The king clapped his hands. The same page entered. "Show him out." The king paused in thought. "Show him to the quadrangular tower, the one facing Neris." "Wait!" He stopped the page, took a purse from his belt and gave it to him. Twardowski bowed low once more. "Everything will be ready on the night of commemoration, sire." They both disappeared behind the door. The king lowered his head onto his hand again. The four-sided tower, like an ancient guardian, loomed over the arsenal. Its walls, etched with cracks, bore the marks of centuries. From the narrow, deeply set windows, there was a view of the Neris River, which in autumn, like a mirror, reflected the crimson colors of nature. The mage settled on the top floor in a small vaulted room, turning it into his mysterious study. At night, when the wind howled through the swaying branches of the trees, strange sounds emanated from the tower. Unclear, rustling, quiet moans. As if the tower itself wanted to reveal a terrible secret. The flickering light in the tower window resembled a will-o'-the-wisp, both alluring and frightening. The castle guards now saw this mysterious light every night, which did not extinguish until the deep autumn dawn. It was strictly forbidden to enter the tower itself. Sometimes a late passerby could see the dark figure of the mage in the window. Hearing strange sounds and hunching his shoulders, he would quicken his step. On the dark evening of remembrance, when the flame of candles flickered on graves and mournful masses echoed in the cathedral, the king left the palace unaccompanied and headed to the tower. The guards opened the heavy iron-bound doors, and the king began to ascend the narrow spiral staircase. The wind whistled through the cracks of the tower, and through the swiftly passing black clouds, the pale distorted face of the moon peered through. The magician, dressed in a black cloak with white sleeves, was already waiting. His entire outfit was embroidered with mysterious Kabbalistic symbols. The walls of the room were also covered in black fabric and adorned with the same symbols. The wizard gestured to the king to sit in the chair, placed in the dark corner. By another wall of the room stood a small hexagonal table, on which lay a thick book made of parchment pages. The mage opened the book. Zateo lit the candles in the candelabra of mirrors, but it did not make the room brighter. And, turning to the king, he said, "Gracious sovereign, today you will see what you desire. But I tell you, look coldly and doubt. Do not move, no matter what you see." The king's heart beat strongly and frequently. It seemed to him that the whole hall trembled from its beats. From a large bowl, which the king had not noticed before, began to rise a fragrant white smoke. Gradually, the entire room was enveloped in a whitish mist, which made the king slightly dizzy. The black figure of the magician almost merged with the wall. "Look in the mirror, sire," he said as if from afar. The magician began to whisper incomprehensible words, and suddenly, from the silver depth of the mirror, a white female silhouette stepped lightly towards the king. He was becoming more distinct, taking shape. The king saw pale hands reaching out to him. Then a face, lips, eyebrows, such familiar eyes, looking at him with love and sadness. She called, beckoned. Forgetting everything, the king exclaimed, "Barbara!" and rushed forward, stretching out his hands. The candle flames flickered. Reflections of the flames flashed in the mirror. It darkened, and the shadow of the woman disappeared. The king fell back into the chair, covering his face with his hands. "Everything in this world is a shadow," he whispered. Mako shook his head reproachfully. "I warned you, gracious sire. Soon after that, the king died, and Tverdovsky disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared. It was said that he still failed to outsmart the evil force and had to give up his black soul. The quadrangular tower overlooking for a long time was called Twardowski's Tower. Over time it collapsed, disintegrated, just like many other things, disintegrated and disappeared in Vilnius. Only in legend is everything alive and eternal.